Hello, and thank you so much for joining us today for this AX1 post-splashdown teleconference. I'm Bettina and Kwan with Axiom Space, and we're so delightful that you can join us. So after launching on April 8th and spending 17 days in low Earth orbit on the International Space Station, the AX crew members
Estamos escuchando el comienzo de la teleconferencia posterior al amerizaje de
Axiom 1. Mission
1.
specialists Eitan Sibe and Mark Pathy safely splashed down and returned to Earth earlier today, 1:06 p.m.
Todos
Eastern
pudimos
Time,
ver que bueno,
Florida.
el amerizaje de hoy, la misión fue un éxito y es lo que están diciendo ahora en la teleconferencia.
And successfully demonstrates Axiom Space's ability to integrate with the ISS.
La idea fuera demostrar la habilidad de la compañía Axiom en conducir una misión de este tipo. Buenas tardes, Maximiliano Espósito, Alfredo Bonet, Nico Naful.
In a moment, we will take questions from reporters. Please press star 1 if you want to ask a question. But we'll begin first with opening remarks, and we'll start with Derek.
Thank you. Thank you, Bettina, and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for participating today. It's really an honor and a pleasure for me to be here at the conclusion of the first private mission to the International Space Station, which is truly a historic event for a number of reasons. And I'll spend some time talking about what our Axiom 1 crew.
Creo que quien está hablando es Derek Hassmann, que es el director de operaciones de Axiom
Space. The crew
Space.
is doing very well, is in great spirits.
No hay imágenes. Podemos poner una imagen del SLS o podemos poner imágenes otras, pero en realidad no hay.
The Dragon capsule and did a quick medical evaluation. Everybody looks great and is feeling reasonably well. They are currently en route from that recovery ship to a Jacksonville airport by helicopter, and then at the Jacksonville airport, they will then be picked up by plane and fly to Orlando. Well, they'll continue post-flight medical and data collection. After that, they're going to get a well-deserved night of rest and then spend a couple more days in Orlando before headed back to Houston. As folks who have been following the mission know, we had a very ambitious suite of activities planned for this crew. The mission was very research-focused with partners throughout the U.S. and across the world. And I have to say that our AX1 crew performed well above expectations. The mission was planned for 10 days, but because of weather, the crew enjoyed a bonus week.
Está haciendo un recuento de lo que ha sucedido, ¿no?
So 17 days
la tripulación,
total,
que es de varios países, 4 en realidad,
15 days
que tenían previsto estar 10 días y se quedaron 15 debido al clima, mal tiempo. Que consiguieron hacer todo lo que se habían propuesto.
That have been curated with academic research partners around the globe, and the Axiom astronauts themselves actually served as research subjects. So there was data collected pre-flight to get a baseline, and then in the next couple of days, data will be collected again in order to understand the impact that the microgravity environment had on their bodies.
Bueno, que después de regreso van a pasar por determinada cantidad de chequeos y análisis para evaluar el impacto en sus organismos después de haber estado en el espacio. Algo similar a lo que se hace siempre, ¿no?
And those outreach efforts were conducted in multiple languages, including English, Hebrew, Spanish, French, and Arabic. And as exciting as it is to have completed this historic mission, we're going to now start looking forward to additional missions. Axiom plans to fly multiple private astronaut missions to the International Space Station over the next several years.
Bueno, que van a anunciar las próximas misiones.
The next mission, of course, being AX2, that is planned for early springtime next year.
Bueno, dice que la misión 2 va a ser en primavera del año próximo.
This mission, we're amazing, and I'd like to just reference
primavera de los Estados Unidos, primavera del norte del Ecuador, el año próximo.
From SpaceX, but both SpaceX and NASA have been just amazing partners and collaborators throughout this experience. From a SpaceX perspective, of course, they provided the ride to and from.
Está agradeciendo a SpaceX y a NASA por la enorme cooperación.
Launch vehicle and their Dragon spacecraft performed flawlessly throughout. I was lucky enough to be in Florida for the launch, which was a beautiful thing. And then of course, the splashdown today. So many, many thanks go to SpaceX for the critical contributions that they made. And it wasn't just the hardware. They also trained the crew in the operation of the Dragon in the 2 years leading up to launch. And then for NASA, of course, for providing the amazing destination, the International Space Station, and also training as well for NASA. The AX-1 crew trained at Johnson Space Center on all the systems and other activities that they're going to perform on ISS. So without those two partners, of course, none of this would be possible. So just an amazing first step that's leading up to our the launch and activation of the Axiom station, with the first module being planned for 2024. So I would say overall, this has been just an amazing success. The crew performed beyond expectations. The ground team.
Bueno, la misión dice fue un éxito. La tripulación estuvo más allá de las expectativas.
And then starting to work toward AX2 and subsequent missions.
Y bueno, que van a estar, ya están trabajando en la misión 2. Dice,
Thank you so much, Derek. Now we'll hear from Benji Reed.
Bueno, Benji Reed es conocido, es el director senior de programas espaciales humanos de SpaceX.
Today, we welcomed our Dragon back with Axiom Space's first 4 private astronauts, Michael, Larry, Eitan, and Mark.
Le dimos la bienvenida hoy a la cápsula Endeavour en la misión esta para Axiom.
We had the astronauts, as Derek had mentioned, they got a little bit extra time on station. We had a daily wind effect that was causing a pattern of high winds that affected all of our various potential landing sites. And what that ended up doing was just, giving them a few extra days on station. As always, safety is our priority. And whether it's
Está hablando de los temas de recuperación que tuvieron por el clima, y que obviamente dice para nosotros siempre la seguridad es lo primario.
Factors to make sure we're ready to bring them home. So that was kind of the campaign to get us here today. They'd been up there for about 16 days, docked to ISS, and everything performed nominally. Dragon undocked autonomously and performed.
Bueno, la cápsula funcionó perfecto, se desacopló autónomamente, logró el ingreso.
And as I mentioned, everything was nominal, including the reentry, our loss of signal, acquisition of signal that we always see during reentry, and then of course the deployment of both the drogues and the mains for the parachute system, and then splashdown. Derek mentioned the crew is in good spirits, and they were great, having a good time talking with each other and talking with our core, the operator who talks to the crew when they're on orbit, and seem to have really enjoyed their trip. It's a real honor. I've mentioned this many times, and I think it's always worth saying, to be able to fly crews for our customers like Axiom, especially when they're doing these great, important things to expand humanity in space, which of course is our core mission. And the real honor is to bring those folks back home to their family and friends. We're going to continue to hold that kind of diligence as we move forward. We've got our Crew 4 launch coming up for NASA this week, and then shortly after that, after they do their handover, we'll bring the Crew 3 team home. I just want to take another moment to thank Axiom for trusting us, for thanking the crew of Axiom for trusting us and their families, and for the great partnership that we have with Axiom, with NASA, with the 45th Space Wing, and everybody else that makes this possible. Before I end, I'll throw out a few fun facts that I think are pretty cool. This is our first splashdown in Jacksonville, and we now have bingo on all of our splashdown sites. We've landed at all 7 of our identified and approved splashdown sites. So of our 7 crewed missions or Crew Dragon missions, we have landed all 7 sites now. This is the first third flight of a crew capsule.
Bueno, está haciendo una recapitulación de eso, la cantidad de veces que aterrizaron ahí, que salió perfecto. Y este es el tercer vuelo de la cápsula de Endeavour.
As everybody's well aware. And this Dragon now has spent over 260 days in space with this mission. So it's pretty great. Anyway, thank you again, and I'll hand it back over to you, Bettina.
Thank you so much, Benji. Found it kind of appropriate that it's the same capsule of DM1 and this both part of such a historic moment in human spaceflight as we try to open up the aperture to get more people in space. So what a great moment. With that, we'll open it up to questions from our reporters. Again, if you have a question, please press *1. Our first question will come from Jeff Faust from Space News.
Space News,
good afternoon, Jeff Faust of Space News. Congratulations on the successful splashdown. For Benji, you've got about 36 hours until the scheduled Crew 4 launch. What are you going to be looking at from this splashdown in order to support the Crew 4 launch? And also, it looked like on this splashdown, all 4 parachutes opened at the same time. I'm curious if there's anything different this time around that might have caused that performance versus the slightly lagging parachutes you'd seen on a couple of previous splashdowns. Thanks.
Hi, Jeff. Great questions. You know, really, we're not going to do anything different than we always do, which is very diligently analyzing all of the data. So while we're already on orbit from pre-launch through docking and then through the mission, our teams are looking closely at all the data, including Dragon's health and performance. They're already analyzing the data and assessing it as we're coming home and even through the splashdown. We have a lot of automated systems as well.
La pregunta fue en relativa a la misión Crew 4 que va a lanzar y a los preparativos que tienen que hacer entre una y otra misión, que va a ser pasado mañana.
And we'll do that process that they do normally. We'll have our launch readiness review later tonight, and we'll be ready to present any concerns or issues, or most likely, how everything's looking great for our launch for Crew 4. And it's the same process we did for Axiom when we were getting ready to fly them, and we'll, and in between missions, we'll do the same thing here. And then at the same time, NASA is a tight partnership, just like they have been for this Axiom mission and for all of our missions. And we work closely with their engineering team to make sure that they all have data, and they've been getting the data, getting same access and that sort of thing. So they also can do their reviews and their concurrence for readiness for Wednesday. In terms of the parachutes, I think it's really important to kind of maybe reframe that question and kind of reframe the whole topic in everybody's mind. The reality is that in a 4-chute system like we have, you will often have a slightly different timing in how all of the different parachutes open. It's actually true in any parachute system. And the great thing about Crew Dragon's 4-chute system is it actually allows us to have kind of a shoot-out capability. It gives us redundancy in the chutes.
Así que tiene la capacidad de poder abrir los paracaídas en tiempos, ¿no? O sea, muy pegados.
To inflate those chutes. And so sometimes that's noticeable on the video or what you can see. Sometimes it's not noticeable to the human eye, but it's not like, in the real world, those chutes all are just perfectly inflating normally. That's the exact same, milliseconds. That's not what you'd expect.
Dice que la diferencia son milisegundos entre la apertura de uno y otro.
And all of in the past, everything has been nominal, and this was also a great nominal parachute performance.
Dice que la performance fue nominal, de acuerdo a lo que está esperando.
Well, thank you, Jeff, and for that question. We will move on to our next reporter. I believe it's Irene Klotz with Aviation Week. Irene?
Thanks, Bettina.
Aviation Week, Irene.
For Benji, with the weather issues that kept the crew on the station longer, and with things getting even busier on station once Starliner is flying, is there any ideas about expanding the locations for splashdown, looking beyond Florida? So there may be some other options.
Sí, hay alguna posibilidad, considerando también las otras cápsulas, de expandir la zona más allá de la Florida. De regreso, ¿no? El sitio de regreso. ¿Qué cosas ha hecho la tripulación más allá de lo que estaba previsto, ¿no?
To help out station crew, like inventorying or anything like that? Thanks.
Sure. Having increasing opportunities both for launch and return is always very important, right? It allows constant access to space, and it also helps with safety to ensure that we're choosing timing and locations that maximize safety for the crew. In this case, we had in the very beginning, a number of years ago, we had thought, well, a few or just a handful of sites would be good, and that, going in with NASA, that's what we had all thought. Then as we decided as we got, moving into this program to expand that. And with the 7 sites, we actually have a really good coverage. They're split on different sides of Florida on the coast, and they really allow for a lot of different weather. In fact, today's landing with Jacksonville is often a site that doesn't have as good weather, but in this case, the weather patterns worked out great so that it was actually the better option. And so I think we've got a really good spread right now, a lot of really good sites. And so I think that'll continue where we are now. If we can see different ways, as I mentioned, to increase more opportunities, again, whether it's launches or returns, that's always a great thing for spaceflight and for safety. But for now,
Alex Fedeto, gracias. La tengo en la punta de la lengua esa pregunta. Vamos a ver si tengo oportunidad, la voy a hacer, sí.
And Irene, relative to what the crew was able to accomplish, I don't have the specific experiments, but I know
estuvo hablando de las zonas de
there was a
aterrizaje y todo
handful
lo
of
demás, y que
experiment
bueno,
runs that had to
ven
be
expandir
deferred early on
los
just because
sitios,
of
¿no?
the pace of the
Y ahora están
timeline.
hablando
If the
de
crew was able to go back and
si hicieron más
we
experimentos
were
en
able
ciencia.
to schedule additional outreach events that didn't fit into the nominal timeline, and just I know the crew, our AX1 crew pitched in on the general care and feeding and upkeep of ISS.
Bueno, dice que sí, que agregaron cosas, pero no dijo qué.
Well, thank you, Irene. We'll go to the next question. Marcia Dunn with Associated Press.
Marcia, the Associated Press.
For you, Benji, I know you mentioned the the importance of maintaining diligence as you move forward to Crew 4, but from an exhilaration point of view, from an accomplishment point of view, how exciting is it to be able to bring one crew down 1.5 days later, launch another, bring another crew down? I mean,
¿Qué se siente, dice, ¿no? De traer una tripulación un día y 2 días después mandar otra, ¿no?
How does it work into your big picture for the company?
¿Cómo es para tu compañía el panorama de todo eso, ¿no?
It is awesome.
Es increíble, dice eso, la verdad.
It's so cool
Benji, ¿no?
that it was just a couple years ago
es muy cool,
that
dice,
we
¿no?
launched Bob and Doug.
Dice, un par de años atrás lanzamos a Bob y Doug.
We've launched the first all-commercial mission to space station.
Y ahora lanzamos la primera misión comercial a la estación espacial.
Provide NASA, multiple providers who and those providers, for those providers, NASA would be one customer out of many.
Y que podemos proveer estos servicios a distintos clientes.
The next part of that big vision was, let's open up space, right, to everybody, and starting with commercial opportunities and opening up commercial.
La próxima parte, que haya más oportunidades comerciales.
And here we are. It's just
y aquí
been a couple
estamos,
of years.
¿no?
On a personal level, I have to say, and I think we all probably have this experience of COVID time. And I always remind myself to add a couple of years to what I remember, or that sort of thing. But this is amazing to me that it really has only just been a couple of years since we got that first one off the ground. Of course, it was a lot of years in the making to get us here. For getting Crew Dragon and the Falcon 9 certified and prepared for flight, working with NASA to get ready to fly, and then for Axiom, all of the work that they've done to build up their business model and their case for how they can expand commercially into LEO. It's awesome. It's really, really cool.
Thank you, Marcia. Our next question comes from Stephen Clark from Spaceflight Now.
Stephen Clark, Spaceflight Now.
Thank you. A couple of questions. First for Derek, if I could. I know beyond AX2, Axiom is looking at flying crews of 4, non-professional astronauts. AX2 has Peggy Whitson as commander. Can you update us on your plans for that beyond AX2? Will AX3 have a crew of 4 revenue or paying passengers on board, so to speak, beginning with AX3? And for Benji, I know some design choices earlier in the Dragon program lowered the number of seats from 7 to 4. Given the demand,
está hablando de la posibilidad de llevar más pasajeros o de cambiar la cantidad de asientos, ¿no? De expandir la cantidad de asientos.
Will the fleet that you have remain all with 4 seats? Thanks.
La pregunta fue para Benjamin Reed.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Benji. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Derek, I apologize. I stepped on you for the first part of the question. Why don't you answer yours first, and then I'll jump in.
Okay. Yeah, Stephen, relative to the plan for private astronaut missions going forward, and
Derek, de Axiom está hablando.
I'll say that Axiom's goal is to schedule and execute 2 a year.
Quieren tener 2 misiones de estas por año. Esa es la meta. Pero depende mucho del tráfico que haya en la Estación Espacial Internacional. Y tiene que ser muy analizado muy cuidadosamente cada uno de estos vuelos.
And as was mentioned previously, there's going to be additional providers, and the traffic model just gets more complicated. So 2 a month is our goal. Excuse me, not 2 a month, 2 a year is our goal, and we'll work with NASA going forward on that. And I'll say we haven't made decisions post AX2. AX2 is the only mission we have an agreement in principle with NASA on, and then we're working on the mission order for. And as you mentioned, that includes Peggy Whitson. And I think what we're going to do is look at how this mission went, go through all the lessons learned relative to training and performance on orbit and so forth, and then also gather data from AX2 as well, and then decide what's in the best interest of the program. Axiom would certainly like to get to a point where we fly an all-private crew, if you will, without an ex-NASA commander, but that's something in the future that we're going to work and collaborate with NASA on.
Bueno, no agregó nada sustancial.
And in terms of Dragon seating, the current Crew Dragon that we have is pretty awesome, and I think that it's a good configuration. Certainly, it's the configuration that we have certified with NASA, and it's working well for all of our customers right now. I think the future is to look at Starship too, right?
El futuro, dice, es la Starship.
A lot of people, and that's the answer.
Y ahí podemos mandar un montón de gente.
So I think as we expand into
dice, estamos conformes con la configuración que tiene ahora la cápsula.
Definitely, Starship's the place where that is.
Y Starship es definitivamente el sitio para ese tipo de misiones. Con más gente.
Thank you so much. We'll go now to Chris Davenport with the Washington Post.
Washington Post pregunta ahora.
Hi, many thanks for doing this. For Benji, and I realize this might be a little bit down in the weeds, but I was wondering, how were you able to turn off that bilge pump so quickly? It just made me wonder if everything on the spacecraft is automated or can be controlled remotely. I mean, even a bilge pump. And then for Derek, just real quick on the timeline for AX2, I think you said it wouldn't come until early next spring. Is that right? And also any updates of when you might announce the other crew members? Thanks.
¿Cuándo van a anunciar los próximos miembros de la tripulación?
Derek, did you want to go first for that one? I think that's more important.
Relative to the announcement of the crew members, I believe that you will hear something relatively soon, probably in the next few weeks.
En las próximas semanas van a saber los nombres de la tripulación.
Again, we need to work with NASA and find the right spot.
Tenemos que hablar con NASA y encontrar el punto justo en que vamos a tener esa nueva tripulación volando que va a ser el año que viene. Y eso va a depender de la portabilidad, o sea, del tráfico que haya en la estación internacional.
And then in terms of the bilge pump, it is a great question, Chris, but it's a little bit the weeds. You're right, but it's a great one. The reality is that on Dragon we have, first of all, the ability to assess performance and assess real-time behavior across the vehicle, the systems and the components, right? So we're getting all kinds of data and telemetry all the time.
Tenemos toda la telemetría, porque preguntó sobre la cápsula y tenemos telemetría de eso continuamente.
It allows for a lot of workarounds or just setting up if you need to do something according to the normal contingency plans or just backup plans. So it's really important to have that kind of constant telemetry on the vehicle and that kind of constant control. And a note on the bilge pump specifically, I think it's, again, something that's important to frame correctly. That's not necessary for crew safety, and it's not part of the nominal mission success, right? Really, those pumps that you hear about on the nets are just basically to help pump out any excess water if it even comes in into the not into the crew capsule at all, but into the exterior, where outside of the pressure vessel. And if there's any water intrusion at all when you splash down, then you want to be able to pump it out, because what that really does is just helps with refurbishment later. It helps with getting that dragon turned around. We rarely see very much water at all, and if we do, we have those bilge pumps in place. And it's really important to also note that those pumps are not necessary for uprighting the vehicle or keeping the crew safe if there were water incursion. So, but that's a good question.
Thank you. Next, Eric Berger with Ars Technica.
Eric Berger, Ars Technica.
Hey, congratulations on the successful splashdown. Question for Benji. Because this was a private mission, NASA said that 30 minutes after undocking, sort of was in the hands of SpaceX and Axiom. Did you try any novel trajectories or take other actions during the return that you probably would not have done on a NASA mission? Thank you.
No entendí
No, we look at our whole toolbox, everything that we've got in terms of all of our potential trajectories and the knobs you can turn to work out. Again, this goes kind of back to that earlier question about opportunities, right? You want to maximize the opportunities for a long-term return, and so we always look at our toolbox, and we look at, well, are there different things that we can do to expand that envelope of capability and add novel trajectories or not? But we're not doing things. We're not running it in a way that's different than we would with any human mission, right? Human spaceflight is human spaceflight. Doesn't matter who the customer is, and we work to make sure it's safe with everybody. And so this was a good, great normal trajectory that we would use and plan to, and we'll continue to always look at how we can expand opportunities in the future.
Great. Our next question comes from ASP, Isam Ahmed.
So, Derek,
Isaac Ahmed, ERSP.
Just given the extra time that the astronauts were on board, is there an agreement with NASA to pay extra, or does that end up being...
El tiempo extra que estuvieron allí los astronautas, ¿le van a pagar extra a la NASA también?
Yeah, because splashdown weather and potential undocking delays are nothing new. Benji referenced that, and of course NASA has worked through that with SpaceX on past flights. So we and NASA, Axiom and NASA, anticipated that there could be delays, and we set the contract so that there was.
Eso está especificado en el contrato, dice, porque ya eso está previsto, esos retrasos están siempre previstos en los contratos. O sea, no va a haber transferencias adicionales de dinero en la misión.
Our next question comes from Andrea with the Houston Chronicle.
Hi. Actually, that last question was pretty much my question, so I'm just going to follow up on it. Derek, did the crew members' contracts have any clause where the amount they paid varied on the time spent on the station? Thank you.
Yeah, there was no additional costs for any parties based on the.
No hubo costos adicionales para nadie de la tripulación.
Thank you, Derek. Next, we'll go to Marcia Smith.
Marcia Smith.
Thanks so much. I was
NASA Spaceflight, no?
Benji with more questions about the cadence of flights. So Axiom is looking at flights to the space station, but of course you do flights just to Earth orbit, and you've got some of those coming up as well. So apart from the space station, which has its own scheduling issues, how many flights do you think you could do per year of crews, even if it's just to Earth orbit? And you mentioned that, it's really when Starship starts flying that you'll have a lot of seats available. So can you give us an update on Starship? How are things going towards the first launch, and when do you think...
Marcia le está preguntando ahora por el Starship, si pueden adelantar algo, dice, ya que habló de llevar más pasajeros en el Starship. Se fue de tema.
Sure. In terms of Dragon flights, I would love to see, many, right? Half a dozen crew flights a year would be great, or more. And I think that we can get to a place where we can sustain that. If there's a market for it and a need, we would definitely do that. I won't really comment on Starship right now since we're focused on Dragon and Axiom for this mission, but I know that there's lots of good sources for that too.
No.
Our next question comes from Chelsea Gold from space.com. I'm sorry, Chelsea. It's all messed up here on our leaderboard, so my apologies.
No worries whatsoever. Chelsea, go to space.com. I know that you've touched on this a bit, both Benji and Derek, but with AX1 now successfully completed, everyone's safely on the ground, how do you now feel that this mission sets a precedent within commercial space flight as the first all-private crewed mission to station, now that everything is said and done and everyone's on the ground?
Ya que están todos seguros en tierra, dice, bueno, ¿qué diría? Respecto a la misión,
practical. You know, everybody understood it was possible. You can put 4 private citizens on a spacecraft and send them to ISS, but can you train them in an abbreviated amount of time?
Todo el mundo estaba de acuerdo en que
can you
era
prepare
posible,
them for the mission in a way
entrenar
that
gente privada y poderla mandar.
minimizes impact on the ISS crew? Those are the questions, and I think we proved we could do that.
Pero probamos que podemos hacerlo. En realidad, ahora voy a cortar y hablo yo de lo que... Esto se trata en realidad de la certificación de esta compañía como una empresa privada para poder mandar astronautas al espacio, a la estación espacial. Esta empresa, Axiom, tiene que haber pasado por una revisión y esta es la demo de ellos de que tienen la capacidad de hacerlo.
Based on the experiences that the crew had on this mission, what are the specific things that we could focus on that will make the crew better prepared, especially for the very intense first several days where they're, still getting their space legs, where everything is new to them, but there's still a lot of significant activities they need to accomplish. So we talked a lot about training for those first several days, and then also training that they got that they don't need. We're going to go back and review the things that they learned both at Johnson Space Center relative to ISS, and to a lesser extent about the Dragon, to see if there's stuff that they don't need that we can streamline. So I would say that we proved it's possible. We proved that we can prepare the crew in a way that makes them effective and productive on orbit. And we're ready to go do it again, and we're going to do it even better next time.
Estamos prontos, dice, para hacerlo de nuevo, dice, y hacerlo mejor la próxima vez, inclusive.
Thank you, Derek, and thank you, Chelsea. Our next question comes from Daria from The Information.
Yes, thank you. Daria Solovieva with The Information. I was wondering if you could share more details about what makes this particular mission different, both in terms of scope and in terms of specific partnerships, what made it possible? And also to follow up on just the earlier question in terms of the initial lessons that you were just sharing, what do you hope the impact is going to be of this mission on the private space industry in the years to come?
¿Cuál es el impacto que va a tener esto en las próximas misiones comerciales que van a venir? Y si hay diferencias entre estas y las misiones con las de gobierno. Dice, obviamente hay obvias diferencias.
These were all private citizens. Of course, Axiom chose to fly Michael Lopez Alegría as the commander.
Dice, nosotros hemos elegido a la gente privada. Dice, Miguel López Alegría, dice, obviamente tiene su experiencia. Él está retirado de NASA, dice, pero la experiencia de él en esto es asombrosa. Por eso lo eligieron para la primera misión. Esto le demuestra al mundo de que realmente hay una nueva agenda, una nueva avenida, dice, una nueva ruta en esto, ¿no? Con las oportunidades para otras naciones y otros gobiernos.
Space program, but have a desire for all the benefits that a space program brings.
Harían muy buena pregunta esa, pero Michael no está en la conferencia. Pero está muy bueno. Ya le mandamos un mail a ver si podemos entrevistarlo. Vamos a ver si nos contesta.
Larry, Eitan, and Mark, who have interest in research and science that's beneficial to the world at large. So I think it just it shows that there's a way to get there that wasn't necessarily there before, and I think it will cause kind of a different perspective worldwide about what's possible.
Thank you, Derek. Next question, Steve Gorman from Reuters.
Hi, thanks for doing this. So I had two quick questions. One, I take it, I want to just make sure that the training that was provided, by NASA and was still paid for by Axiom and its customers, right? That wasn't a subsidy by NASA, essentially. So that is included in the cost of what your customers pay for their seat aboard the rocket. And secondly, did any of the crew suffer any kind of seasickness? It looked like that capsule was kind of rocking and bobbing quite a bit there after a splashdown before they were able to harness it up.
Sure. Relative to the International Space Station systems and emergency training, we did pay NASA directly. We paid NASA directly for the facility time, and then we paid the primary NASA training subcontractor, KBR, for the instructor time. So that was all built into the price, and it was not a subsidy. And I don't know, Benji can speak to his experience, but the seas look pretty good today. And there was some minor rocking, but it didn't look too bad to me. And based on everything I've heard, the crew was feeling great.
Yeah, absolutely. The weather was great for splashdown. It was all within our bounds for nominal splashdown and nominal weather. And the rocking that you saw in the capsule was also, within.
Le preguntaron Miguel Ángel Teti, pero no hubo una respuesta.
You can see how Dragon, that's one of the great designs of a capsule type system, and
No escuché más nada. No, pero seguimos conectados. Seguíamos conectados. Se cortó, evidentemente. Vamos a intentarlo de nuevo. No, este no es el número. Se nos cortó la llamada, vamos a ver si podemos conectarnos nuevamente. Mientras tenemos igual el directo acá.
Your line will be placed on hold until the conference begins. Planned also to be a 10-day mission.
After the tone, please clearly state and spell your first and last name, your media outlet, then press the pound key.
Daniel Riguera, Ron UI.
Baseline, because of course, the capsule
estamos de nuevo conectados.
The Axiom crew flies on would be on ISS that much longer, which type needs for their
Daniel Riguera, Ron UI.
And it uses more resources on ISS, of course. So there's, the longer you're there, the more resources you combine or consume, and then the longer you're on the port. So these are things we need to work out with NASA, but to do longer missions. What was the other part of your question? I'm sorry.
I think we lost him. The line. Well, I thank you, Derek and Ken. If there's anything, you can email me, and I will get back to you with anything else. I will say that was our last call, our last question. So I appreciate everyone for participating in today's call. We really appreciate this.
Bueno, no hay más preguntas, no tuvimos oportunidad. En realidad sí queríamos preguntarle por problemas de comunicaciones que tuvieron. Y la última pregunta que Alfredo Bonet estaba muy buena también. Pero bueno, lamentablemente todavía no tenemos el peso como fuerza latina para que nos coloquen a veces allí en las preguntas, la verdad.
Email myself or media@axiomspace.com for more information. Thank you so much for joining us, and thanks to the entire team, and go AX1. Have a great day all.
Bueno, esto está terminando. Paso a leer las últimas preguntas que hay allí. A ver, me coloco un poco pantalla para poder salir en este final. Adrián Braga, genial, dice, bueno, sí, lamentablemente no tuvimos la oportunidad de preguntar, ¿no? No hay más. Buenas tardes a todos de Venezuela, dice Luis Torres de Cado. No hay más nada en el chat, así que bueno, con esto terminamos. Recuerden, lo próximo que viene ahora es el lanzamiento de CRU 4. Hay una conferencia de prensa esta tarde. Voy a revisar un poquito los mails. Nada, es así, sobre el lanzamiento de la CRU 4, la conferencia de prensa está prevista. Estoy revisando. La conferencia de prensa va a ser mañana. Tempranito, a las 7 de la mañana. Bueno, vamos a registrarnos, vamos a estar en esa conferencia de prensa. Mañana tempranito, con la conferencia de prensa del lanzamiento de la misión CRU 4. Allí nos vamos a encontrar, entonces, nuevamente. Y obviamente tenemos al día siguiente el lanzamiento de esa misión. Así que hay mucho para ver. Esta semana se viene el lanzamiento de la CRU 4, Rocket Lab con el lanzamiento de su cohete y el intento de recuperación. Así que buenísimo, vamos a estar a full. Muchas gracias, Daniel, por compartir esta conferencia, dice Javier Capochetti. Espectacular, Daniel. José Pitalá, Rosa, gracias por tu esfuerzo. Y Adrián Braga, tú tranquilo, Daniel. Ya meteremos, pero siguiendo aquí. Sí, esa es la idea. Que la cantidad de gente que siga esto y que nos apoye sea cada vez mayor para poder tener más acceso a poder hacer preguntas. Ya tener acceso como medio de prensa que somos es muchísimo, pero obviamente tenemos que tener más fuerza latina para tener más peso. Un abrazo enorme, mil gracias a todos por este apoyo. Nos vemos.